Good evening. Welcome to our regularly scheduled meeting of the Jefferson County Board of Education on Monday, October 22nd. And do we have somebody to help lead us with the pledge this evening?
We have students tonight from our leadership class at Washington High School. This is the first year for that class, and we are very delighted to have those students here with us tonight. I will introduce Ms. Thurcell, their teacher, who will help us lead the pledge as well.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Thorcell, would you like to introduce your students?
Sure. They were going to do it later, but sure.
Oh.
Do you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves?
I'm Brianna Hines. I'm Madison Chaplet.
I'm Ethan Brady.
I'm Elise Taylor.
I'm Yasmin McAllister.
All right.
Miss Thorcell.
All right, I guess we'll see you guys in just a few minutes
You will,
then.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Solstice?
Yes, it's always exciting. We have 4 new business partners tonight. All of them are signing with the Martin Delaney OLC Learning Center. So Thomas has been out pounding the streets, and she's rounded up some good ones to help her out.
Watch out.
So we'll start with Miss Terry Burhan. She's here representing both Ranson Old Town Community Gardens, and they're also going to partner with Ranson Parks and Rec. So she's kind of doing double duty tonight. So we'll go ahead and have her sign on the line there. And if you noticed on your desk, Ms. Burhan's brought an invitation for each of you to join her at an open house. I guess it's, maybe she can tell us more about it. I guess they're going to reopen the Civic Center or something, and you're all invited to attend, so I'm sure she'll tell us a little bit more about that.
If she could mention the words air conditioning and convocation in the same sentence.
There you go.
Bonus.
Finally, absolutely.
So there.
We've been doing yoga down there, and it's very nice. We've been enjoying it.
Hot yoga or air conditioned yoga?
The first week it was hot yoga, and then it was air conditioned.
So the Ranson Civic Center, we've actually just completed most of our renovations, and so we'll be holding 2 open houses. One will be Friday the 26th from 3 to 7 and Saturday from 9 to 2. So I'd invite you or anybody who would like to stop by and see the renovations to come do that. We're always excited to be a partner with the schools and to provide a space. It's 40,000 square feet, so we can really use our imagination with what we can accomplish in that space together. So I'm thrilled to do that. As far as the garden goes, it's always a pleasure for kids of any age, adults, to get their hands in the dirt and to really understand and nurture something and help it grow. And that's such a process and an important process in growing up and being good community members and learning how to do that. So we're happy to work with Mrs. Vandell to do that, and she's a pleasure to work with, as are her kids.
Well, thank you. My kids enjoy it, and we actually just got our own 2 garden beds from the Ranson Old Town Garden, so we are now currently harvesting lettuce and kale. So we thought, and the kids, they just love it. Get outside in the classroom and hands-on, they're sensational. So we really enjoy it, and we appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Thomas, you just stay right there.
Yep.
We've got Mr. Bob Scheck, who's here from Jefferson County Community Ministries. I think we all know what a great job they do in town. They're going to partner up with the school tonight, so we certainly welcome them. I think they have some plans with the school already, I'm not sure, but we'll let Ms. Vandell and Mr. Scheffner talk about that.
Yes, we currently go down every Wednesday, and we spend an hour down there. Our students work with the clothes, and we fold the clothes and organize those. And sometimes we get to put some cans away. They have down in the basement of the old J.C. Penney's that it used to be. That's what makes me think of every time I go in there. They have nice organized all the cans by peas and what year, and the kids, again, they just go to town and they enjoy it. They might whine on our way down there, but once they get there, they have a great time. So we appreciate Mr. Bob working with us
And
with
we
that.
have 4,000 cans of corn. So as you see, requests for food donations, please no more corn. I don't have an invitation like Terry did for something neat, but I do have an invitation for folks who would like to spend the night serving in our cold weather shelter. We, of course, do the food and clothing and work with as many people as we can. I love having the kids with us. We have got a 16-bed shelter capacity, and we right now we've got 65 people who are without homes that we have to somehow figure out how to stay sheltered over the winter. We're doing whatever we can, connecting them with as many resources as we can. My hope is that perhaps the Civic Center will be the place where we can put them, but that's a conversation that we haven't yet had. We'd even be willing to pay in cans of corn.
That's how we do it all.
Water systems.
We appreciate the food that we get from the schools, and we will be sending word out that we don't want any more corn. And any time that we can help supplement your clothing closets in the individual schools with our food, with our clothing closet, please keep us informed, let us know, and working with your students who are struggling with issues of homelessness or anything that we can do to support your work with your students, we would be happy to do whatever we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our fourth partner for tonight is Calico Jack's Cafe. It's going to be represented here by Sandy Niles and also by Jean Levasseur. So I guess it's a new restaurant in town, right?
It is a new restaurant. We're almost 6 months old. If you guys haven't been down there yet, please stop through. What we're going to be doing is we're giving an incentive to one student a month. We're offering them a free meal, and we're hoping that it will be an incentive for them to come down and check out the cool pirate place. On another note, we're also doing a Halloween-themed pirate party this upcoming Friday. It's $25 at the door. You guys feel free to stop in through. It's going to be fun times. We're going to have prizes. So.
And the Halloween party is basically as a fundraiser for all those affected by Hurricanes Michael and Florence. And the proceeds from that party are going to Team Rubicon, a veteran and first responder-led organization that is really active right now down south, helping our neighbors to the south. And education is a very important part of all of us. Myself, I'm getting my PhD, so piled high, everyone knows the acronym. So we're hoping to reach out to the community with this partnership and just support more education for our children, because that's really where the future's at. Thank you. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You ready?
Okay.
He was getting a little preview of some of our board presentations. All right. Good evening. Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here. It's always an exciting night when we get to recognize the exceptional students that we have, the wonderful staff that we have, the invaluable volunteers that we have, and we're going to do all of that tonight. I know because I triple-checked that I called everybody, so they will be here. First up, we're going to recognize some folks you may have heard on the radio. 2 students at Jefferson High School who recognize the need in their community and are utilizing Cougar Hour to be able to give back. We'll start off by asking Simone Rivers and Hannah Carr to come up, along with their principal, Sherry Ross. There she is. All right. Fitzgerald, thank you. Come on up with your principal and we'll...
And Ms. Pearl, because Ms. Pearl is instrumental working with the leadership class and helping with this initiative
Here's
as
the
well.
certificates.
Thank you very much. So Hannah was not able to be here this evening, but I'm going to let Ms. Pearl do an introduction and talk a little bit about what Simone and her classmates have been doing.
So Simone is from Jefferson High School's first leadership class, and she has been instrumental in starting our Cougar Closet, which is our first clothing donation center. And I was a few minutes late because I had a woman from Martinsburg who called me because she heard Simone and Hannah on the radio already reaching out to provide donations and didn't have transportation. So we're coordinating that, but we opened officially last week.
This is a really cool concept. They reached out to me on this when they were getting it started because they wanted to make sure they rolled it out effectively with things like going on the radio. And it's not just going to be for students in need. It might be for someone who goes to school and forgets a sweater. You can go and do it. This isn't about singling out anybody. It's really about if you have something to give, give it. If you need something, take it. And it's going to be done, you said, during Cougar Hour?
Yes.
Awesome. So it's going to be an opportunity for students to volunteer, learn about running a business, sort of. So great. If you'll go over and stand right there between Ms. Skinner and Ms. Roper, I will get your picture. Right around the back here. All right. Say Cougar Closet on 3. 1, 2, 3. All right. Lens caps off. Awesome. Sweet. All right. Thank you very much. All right. Up next, I'd like to ask Carmen Skinner to come forward. And Carmen got the opportunity to represent Jefferson County Schools at the West Virginia Ambassadors Camp, and she's going to tell us a little bit about that opportunity and the honor that comes with it.
Ambassadors Camp was a really good learning experience, and we went to many places and we interacted with the West Virginia government, and I would suggest it for the other 8th graders.
Despite having interacted with the West Virginia government, it was still a great experience. So thank you very much for representing Jefferson County. All right, say ambassadors on 3. 1, 2, 3. No one says anything. All right. And this next group of recognees is actually not strangers to you. They just led us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'll ask Caitlin Thorsell to come up and talk a little bit about her leadership class. You may have seen them in the newspaper recently. They were actually front page above the fold for their costume closet.
I'm actually going to let them talk to you guys first, and then if I need to, I'll fill in.
Hi again, I'm Madison, and we decided to do a Halloween costume drive for this project for our community. We kind of had no idea what we wanted to do in the beginning. We're like, what should we do? What's upcoming events? So we're like, Halloween's coming in. Why not collect costumes for people who are kids who may not have one for this upcoming Halloween? So initially, we contacted some of the staff at the schools, and we were like, we need places to either collect costumes, or we need one place to host a costume so that we can find some for kids in our community. So we partnered up with some local businesses, and we partnered up with some other like middle schools such as Charlestown and Harpers Ferry, and they were more than welcome to help us collect some costumes. And Blue Ridge Elementary School and Primary decided that they wanted to host for us and have all of our costumes go there so that kids could come in and pick up their costumes.
So the actual event we had at Blue Ridge Primary in their lunchroom. We got there as soon as we could after school.
Without speeding, right?
Without speeding. I mean, that road's dangerous getting up there. So we had laid out all of our costumes that we had donated. We had roughly 50. We laid them out by boy, girl, and then by size. We set up some extra thing. We had glow-in-the-dark Halloween trick-or-treat bags and glow sticks set aside, as well as miscellaneous items such as like eye patches for pirates and stuff like that in a separate area. And we opened our doors and let people come in. I would say we had a pretty good success. We had a little over half of our, roughly 50 costumes taken. We got to talk to some nice people, and we had a good time doing it.
The rest of the costumes that we did not give away after school, they were given to the elementary school students throughout the week. So none of the costumes went to waste. We would like to thank everybody in the community for donating and supporting our drive. It was a great opportunity to give back, and we found that there are creative ways to give back to our community other than just like food drives, and there's more to do. We'd like to possibly do future events like this.
What are you looking to do for Halloween?
I don't even know.
They did try on some costumes there, but they weren't quite the right size.
Can you talk quickly, Caitlin,
Sure.
about what leadership class is all about?
Sure. So this is our first year at Washington for having a leadership class. We're small but mighty. We have 7 students. And honestly, I kind of left it up to them to drive the curriculum that we teach. So one of the things that's important to me, and that is also important to them, is community service. So one of the goals they set aside was every 9 weeks we're going to do some type of community service activity. So this was the first one. The other thing that really surprised me when I said, what do you guys want to learn about? What do you want to become better at? They said public speaking, which you hardly ever hear from anyone. So I'm pretty excited about that. Part of this particular project, we worked a lot on email communication, verbal communication. So we kind of incorporated a lot into the project. They wanted to know how to plan events, so I kind of showed them this is how I do it when we plan FFA events, and we worked backwards. We picked a date. But I think over the course of the year, these guys are really going to drive what they want to learn, how they learn it, what they want to teach. We're going to partner with some different entities within our community. They're actually going to attend a Leadership Jefferson module in the spring, so we partnered up with them. And I think kind of the ability of these guys is going to grow, and the class is going to go in whatever direction they want to take it. So pretty excited.
Okay.
Elise, you guys want to go?
Form a human pyramid with a board. I think this is everybody.
Do you want me to hand it to you?
To double check.
Do it after.
All right, Spirit of Halloween on 1. 3. One more. There we go. Thank you all. So we have 2 emerging leadership classes in our high schools, both getting recognition from the community for not only their leadership, but for their generosity. We have students who are representing us at the state capitol and making a good name for Jefferson County with the state government. So I think that we're doing pretty well so far for this month. But things do get better. We have our Spirit of Jefferson Awards. And I'm always very excited to be able to recognize the staff and the volunteers who make a difference for our school. First up is Ann Portrait. Thank you.
It gives me great pleasure to introduce Ann Portray. She's a teacher at Jefferson High School. She teaches special education, and she teaches us lots of things. Ms. Portray, her nominee, says to her that she always has a positive attitude and is constantly willing to help everyone, students and staff. Ms. Portray makes everyone feel that they are truly an important part of the school. Her positive attitude is contagious. She makes everyone feel valued, and no individual feels unimportant when working with her. She truly cares about the students and staff as a whole. And John Kirby was your nominator, but on behalf of all of us here at Jefferson High School and Jefferson County Schools, thank you for all that you do for us.
Anything you want to say?
I've just been privileged to, this is my 45th year of teaching. It's been a privilege. I've worked with a lot of wonderful administrators, a lot of them's on your board, a lot of wonderful students. I love each and every one of them. They've taught me more than I've ever taught them. And I made a world of friends in those 45 years.
Another 45 on 3. One more. There we go. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank
Our next Spirit of Jefferson Award goes to Tina Hartlove. She is the service staff member being recognized. We were aware this may happen. She's unable to be here, but she made it. Surprise! Gotcha. So Tina did make it.
I'm sorry.
Principal Horn's going to introduce her.
I have the absolute privilege of recognizing Tina Hartlove. I have on my phone what her nominator said that is truly indicative of what she is. She is one of the kindest souls that you'll ever meet. She sees children at their worst, yet she has the patience of a saint and meets them with a perfectly balanced, gentle firmness that endears respect from both the students and from her colleagues. And we love Tina
That's so
Hartlove.
sweet. And the person that nominated me
is Larissa Spiker.
And I want to say the same about her. She's exactly like that. We work as a team at Shepherdstown Middle. It's not just one person. And every day I pray to touch one life. And that's the way I feel. So.
Surprise entrance on 3. 1, 2, 3. One more.
Thank you.
And certainly last but not least this evening, I'd like to introduce our Jefferson County Board of Education Volunteer of the Month, Sherry Jaspal. Jaspal?
She hates this kind of thing. It is an honor for me to introduce to you Sherry Jaspal. She is the parent of a former South Jefferson student and a current South Jefferson student. She is the volunteer liaison for our PTO, and she's also a business partner, but that's not even why we're here. She also is a Read Aloud volunteer, a past volunteer. She coordinated our school picture day. She also helps every morning with a student arrival, and she helps me, which I am so grateful, for student dismissal at the end of the day. And I don't even know if there's anything left. I feel like she is like a staff member at South Jefferson because she's there every day, and we are just very grateful. It's sometimes the person that's right in front of you that you forget to recognize, and I wanted to rectify that and let her know how much we appreciate her. So thank you.
Anything to say?
I keep telling her, when my oldest graduates,
They can still call me. I'll come back. I like the school.
Picture day is no easy task, I know.
Oh, no, it was bad this year.
I don't even know what they say on picture. All right, one more. Thank you very much for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes our presentations for this month. Thank you all.
Thank you. Madam Superintendent, do you have any comments this evening?
Just two quick reminders on dates. First, tomorrow is a staff development day for Jefferson County Schools. We greatly appreciate our parents' support in letting our staff have the time to be able to hone their craft and work on the practice for their kids' benefit. And the other is a reminder that our next board meeting is on an off date. It would typically be on Monday, November the 12th. That is, however, Veterans Day, which we honor through closing school, and many of our students participate in veterans events around the county. So our board meeting will be on Tuesday, the 13th.
Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the October 8th, 2018 regular meeting?
So moved. Second.
All right. Questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Citizens' comments. Ms. Ogden, would you be kind to be a timer, please? I know several of you have been here before, but just a reminder to please limit it to 3 minutes, and thank you for bringing your kindness tonight. First up is Mr. Grant Perlman. And after Grant, we have Mary Ann.
Thank you very much. Appreciate an opportunity to speak with you all. I am a teacher here in the county. I teach at Washington High School. And I'm actually here tonight as a member of the American Federation of Teachers, Jefferson, and the Central Labor Council for the Eastern Panhandle. We are part of the AFL-CIO. So I'd like to read a statement. We had also read this. I read this to the County Commission last week, but since you're mentioned, I'll read it to you as well. And then just a very quick invitation to you. The Eastern Panhandle Central Labor Council is deeply concerned that citizens of Jefferson County and surrounding areas will be exposed to extremely dangerous pollutants should the planned Rockwool plant in Ransom begin operations. There are 4 schools within 2 miles of the factory, and others are also in the path of the plume from the 210-foot smokestacks that will emit thousands of tons of particulate matter, volatile organic compounds, formaldehyde, and more. We're worried that the health and safety of the children in the schools and the well-being of the community at large are being placed at risk through this ill-conceived project. The CLC urges the Jefferson County Commission, the Board of Education, and all other government entities involved with this project to bring it to a halt. There are many as yet unanswered questions about the plant and its impact, but the more we learn, the more we are convinced that this project needs to be stopped. The Eastern Panhandle Central Labor Council represents organized workers throughout 7 counties with over 2,200 active members. Our members are letter carriers, food and commercial workers, auto workers, plumbers and steam fitters, teachers, utility workers, firefighters, laborers in the construction trades, communication workers, school service personnel, and other public employees and operating engineers. And I wanted to share that with you. I would also like to let you know that on October 27th, coming up very quickly, we are holding a unity rally. All 3 of the service organizations, AFT, EA, and School Service Personnel Association, are co-sponsoring a unity rally at Panera Bread, 11 to 1 on October 27th. And we would love to have you come. You've been very supportive of teachers in the past and all of our education personnel, and we'd love to see you there. Thank you very much.
President Skinner, am I allowed to yield my time? Or no?
Yes.
Yes.
You just have to let us know who's going to be taking yours.
My name is Catherine Joswick.
Okay, and after Catherine, we have Ruth Hatcher.
My name is Catherine Joswick, and I am a scientist and concerned Jefferson County School parent. And I want to applaud the Board of Education for their continued insistence on a health risk assessment study. And I have a couple comments about that. I was happy to see that the portal was up and I applied, but I was surprised to find that it only requires contact information and confirmation of whether or not you are a Jefferson County school parent. And there was no place in which you could put a statement of your qualifications there. So I would hope that maybe on the website you could add a contact to whom we can send our statements of our qualifications there. Because otherwise I find it hard to determine how you would select the parent volunteers. The other thing I'd like to say is I think over the last 3 months, all of us have learned to be very wary of allowing others to do our due diligence. I have no idea what the health risk assessment study would say, but regardless of this, I think we all have to do our own research. And towards that end, I will continually bring research up to the board. And today I give you an essay that was published in the American Journal of Respiratory and Critical Care Medicine in 2016. And it concerns air pollution levels that are below the EPA permitted standards. We continually hear that Rockwool will be below the EPA standards, but there's a lot of concern that those standards don't go far enough. And this is just a summary of the study. And what they point out is that the existing body of evidence regarding respiratory health effects of air pollutants has largely been based on research conducted at higher concentrations than those now experienced in the United States. If only that data is used in the health assessment, we might have a false sense of security with the levels that rock will emit. I have the entire study of 614 children in Boston, Massachusetts that were followed, and they measured their lung function as a consequence, as a function of their distance from a major polluter like Rockwool. I will send that entire paper to you guys by email because I wanted to save paper, because it's a long paper. And I will highlight key parts so you don't have to read through it. And then the other thing I passed out, which you've probably seen before, the sinkhole map of Jefferson County. Because regardless of what the health assessment says about air pollution, we still have a factory and a gas pipeline being built in an area riddled with sinkholes, which means either possible drinking water contamination or even worse, an explosion right next to these schools. So I would caution us to do our own research and continue on with the health assessment. Thank you.
And after Ruth, we have Christine Weimer.
Good evening, everyone. This is a sign in the county, and I don't know whether you guys have seen this or not or paid attention to it, but it is entering Eastern Panhandle, Karst Groundwater Recharge Area. Report hazmat spills 911. This is of the entire Eastern Panhandle, so basically this area here is us in Jefferson County. So that pretty much tells you we have a lot of karst area in our county. And when it rains, our groundwater gets recharged or replenished. And any contamination could be quickly spread throughout the county in Jefferson. So you call 911 if you have a hazmat spill, because we have karst topography requires special attention. So I don't know whether you guys have seen this, but I haven't been in too many other counties that there's a sign, bringing this to our attention. And next on the agenda are the 6 EPA Notice of Violation. There are 6 items on this Notice of Violation given to Rockwool, and there's another article that said 4 days ago there are 10 more possible sinkholes. So this is a very serious issue in our county. We're not like other places. So that's very serious. I don't, like Catherine just said. Plus, on the 2016 EPA TRI report, there's Jefferson County at 18 pounds in 2016, and Bahia, Mississippi was 532.5 thousand pounds of toxins that year, which is over 29,000 times what we were in 2016. That is a substantial amount of increase. And 33% is formaldehyde. That's enormous amount. So you take that figure and you do the math. Luckily, it's only 10 years, so you just move the decimal point. So that 5,325,000 pounds of toxic emissions over a 10-year period, plus other possible polluters in the area. That is a lot of pollution. But regardless of this amount, we are to believe there is no health impact to anybody, as stated in their Herald newspaper article. I don't know about you, but that's an awful, statement to make. That. Can they back that up? The American Lung Association says otherwise. All you have to do is Google American Lung Association children, and you will pull up lots of information along with the other 10 zillion health, specialists out there. My husband signed up on a Rockwell Go Home petition in France. They are having the same issue that we are. Here it is. They have this issue everywhere. So it's not new. I don't read French. I think I did deux, trois, quatre, cinq, sept, huit, neuf, dix. That's all I remember from, my French. But I can see, that says Rockwell, go home. I can understand that part. And here's another article about India, which is extremely distressing. So I'd like to give you these two articles, and please read these. I don't have copies for everybody, but thank you very much. Thank you.
Christine Weimer. Hi. Thank you. First, I just sorry. I wasn't sure if it was me or anyway. Okay. Thank you for thank you for pushing forward with a medical impact study. I really appreciate your leadership on that, and I really appreciate you pointing out last time how we could find that information on the website. I just wanted to ask a few things in regards to that. So I urge you to add people to the committee, both students and parents and members of the education community who have experience in medicine and biomedical sciences. I saw a lot of things about environment and environmental effects, but I feel strongly that that should be represented. Students who are maybe interested in studying medicine or biomedical sciences, and parents who do the same. We have a lot of resources from the NIH in this county, some really smart parents. I would also ask that you add a few things to your rubric that the committee will use to evaluate the applicants for the company that will conduct the study. So first, I see that you asked for the company to have strong familiarity and experience with air quality standards, including federal regulations, background and experience working with the U.S. EPA. I would urge you to reword this or rethink this part of the protocol to reflect that this is a broad-based medical research study, not an EPA standards check. We know that the company has met the EPA standards check. We want to know more about how it's going to affect those children. I think that would help make a more informed decision. Please choose a company that has strong experience and representation in medicine and biomedical sciences. I see that you don't want to choose people who've been vocal on this issue, and obviously I think that's really smart. We should choose people who are not previously biased. Please also not only choose people who aren't vocal, but maybe people who are quiet but still have both implicit or explicit biases. This would include both children and parents. Children, for example, and their parents who may be on a team that may or may not benefit financially from Rockwell, or children of parents or parents who stand to also make a financial or political benefit from Rockwell being here. I appreciate the statement on the website saying that Rockwell will have no further involvement except their representative, obviously, on the committee. please keep it that way. We're really looking up to that, and please keep it that way. I'm sure you saw the AP story that showed that Rockwell has already had violations. They haven't even gotten up and running, and they already have violations. Initially, when we started this fight, I was really pushing for them to work with the horsemen to help the horsemen kind of deal with and moderate their effects. I think that's no longer possible. They're not trustworthy. They haven't done the things they've promised, like putting in air monitors, and they didn't report these violations. And I ask you also to consider the economic impacts. I won't go through them all. I've talked about them before, and lots of people have. But we all know from Sociology 101 that the single strongest indicator of whether a student will go to college and whether they will be successful in college is their socioeconomic background.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, the consent agenda. Any changes?
Yes, ma'am. I would like to request the removal of item number 10 and item number 56 for discussion in executive session due to personnel issues.
Do we have a motion on the amended consent agenda?
So moved.
Second. Any questions or discussion?
On the whole agenda?
On the consent agenda.
Okay.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. And that brings us down to unfinished business.
Joyce is here.
Oh.
And I'm here, but again, this is comes directly from the transportation, so I'm just going to leave it with Joyce.
And this is action on approval of the Jefferson County Schools prescription over-the-counter medication policy.
That's correct. So we made a few changes to encompass that this policy be expanded not only for bus operators, but for any employee who drives a county vehicle. So the changes in this revised document that's been out on comment since the last board meeting are reflective of that.
Do we have a motion?
Second.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Last time you presented this, you mentioned that you had spoken to the transportation department and nobody had any issue or comment or anything like that. Do you know if the maintenance department or any other department that this would highly impact have any input or issue with the new policy?
That we did not check, but I don't believe they would have any problem because it's a state policy, basically. All we did was add those people. Well, we can make that check.
First of all, we sent it
We
out
certainly
to
can.
everyone.
Right.
But
Right.
we specifically asked the bus drivers.
Separately, and I believe you took this to the Transportation Committee as well, that has
That's
a
correct.
representative of each one of those groups, the mechanics and all of those on that group.
That is correct.
I would just ask that we make sure that they are aware that there is a revised policy.
We probably should go over that with them at a staff development.
At an early stage.
All right. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Opposed? All right. Thank you. Action on approval to place on review the Jefferson County Schools integrated PE policy.
Ms. Farrow,
Sorry,
I
Ms.
can talk
Moran.
to you a little bit about that.
Good evening. In response to recent changes for Policy 2510, counties now have the flexibility to offer, at their discretion, a variety of different ways to get the PE credit. Jefferson County Schools is going to continue to offer the regular PE course that they've had in the past, as well as now including integrated PE and extracurricular PE to fulfill the one credit code requirement for high school physical education. We have developed a policy which we will ask to be reviewed over the next few weeks, and if approved, it will begin for the 2019-2020 school year. We have representation from both of our high schools this evening with administrators, Mrs. Marcus and Mrs. Sherry Fitzgerald, as well as a PE teacher, the department chair at both high schools. So if you would have any specific questions that you would like answered regarding that policy that is up for review, feel free.
All right. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
This is just to put it on review, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And then, so the only question I had was, will it still be available in the summer as well, or are we going to offer this just because it's virtual? We'll be not offering it at that point in the summer. Is it going to make a difference?
I think that one of the concerns, we actually had a committee of guidance counselor, of school counselors and PE folks, and I do think that one of the concerns was that there would be a drastic reduction in the number of students taking PE during the summer, particularly among our band and a lot of our kids with extracurriculars who wanted to be able to fit it in, that if they could do it virtually. We did not discuss and don't have any plans of not offering it at all. However, I would say if there's a drastic reduction, if we go from having 50 kids who will take it during the summer down to 2 kids who will take it during the summer, then at some point the economics of that we would cease to offer it. But student demand is what drives that. And if the demand goes down because they have this option and they choose this option, then we need to respond to that.
And do we know, maybe we can look as well, just so we're kind of ahead of the curve, to see of our students who have taken PE in the summer over the last 3 years, how many of them actually played a sport, or how many of them were involved in band, what other activities, if there's some way to kind of track that, so we would know going forward. Doesn't necessarily mean we have to pass this policy, but we'll at least have an idea of if we're heading in that direction, because we will see the numbers drastically drop, because I think that's a good point. I don't see why we wouldn't. We can at least start to alert parents to let them know you need to make this change in your schedule come in freshman year, and understand this might be a possibility that it will happen. So.
Anything else?
Go ahead.
I was wondering what individual dual one is.
Individual and dual sports is a class that focuses on individual and or dual sports, such as tennis, where you can play singles and or doubles, badminton, singles and or doubles. We haven't offered it in the past few years just because the need hasn't been there, but it's there if we do have students who would like to take it.
So would swimming be one of those?
Well, we can't offer swimming because we don't have a pool. It's certainly included in the waiver portion.
Right, yeah, I thought it said extracurricular.
We don't teach it.
I think the extracurricular. Swim is on there as the extracurricular part.
Okay. So,
Remember,
so tennis is something that we might offer in the future, you're saying?
I teach tennis, and I believe Ms. Rhodes teaches it as well. We teach it within our PE classes, but it's also offered as a student who plays tennis. If they go this route, they can get their PE credit that way as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm confused about. So tennis is an individual sport, and swimming is an individual sport, right?
Yes.
It is? Okay.
Yes.
So you're saying we don't teach swimming? I'm confused.
We don't have access to a pool, so we cannot teach swimming.
But if they're on the swim team for 2 consecutive seasons or even non-consecutive, yes, swim will count as one of the extracurricular options.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So there are 2 paths to take. The first one is to take one of the physical activity credit-bearing classes, which is an actual class in the school, along with a virtual PE class where you
Yes.
actually get a high school credit.
Right.
The other path is to, it looks like, to play a qualifying sport such as soccer or swimming or football or baseball, and you pretty much get a waiver where you don't have to take a PE class, but that doesn't count toward a graduation credit.
Exactly. It's
Okay.
non-credit bearing, but they're getting credit for being on a sports team or part of a sports team for 2 seasons.
Right. And it's only for 2 seasons. They don't have to do the 3rd season. Okay. All right. Any other discussion?
So it could essentially take you 1 year if you were a multi-sport student to be able to fulfill that, just like it
Same
would
as
with
what
the
if
class.
you're taking PE for this whole year.
Just want to be sure it was clear.
And you can't mix the two either. So, marching band would not count as part of the waiver. It would just be the sports team.
No, it
Unless
does
we change that later on. That's not how the policy reads. Marching band is one of those that they would have to take the integrated piece with.
I guess
See
I
what
would
I mean?
wonder what the difference is. With that. What would be what's the objective to, if they're the same length of season?
One is offered during the school day, and the other is extracurricular.
So are there more hours spent during the school day in that specific class than there are
We can
on
look
the
into
field in
that.
the sport?
If you want, that's something we could certainly look into.
I'd like
That
to at
hasn't
least
been mentioned.
look at it, because, if you're spending more time in the classroom, I can see where that would be a different qualifying piece. But if it's the same or more time on the field or in your
I
sport.
think at our meeting, it was mentioned that marching band, they really only march just one season. They don't march year-round. So it really, it's different than, I guess, taking something where you're going to be active every day for the full school year. Marching band is one of those, I think they march during football season and for parades, but I don't know that they march in the spring.
They march all summer.
Yeah.
I think it'd be smart to at least look at the time spent. And if the time spent is equal, I think you have to give them equal share. If it's not, then I totally understand it. But, whether it's same with dance or weightlifting, any of those pieces, if it's the same amount of time spent, I don't think it's fair to segregate that.
So, are you a counselor?
I'm the department chair at Jefferson High School for Health and PE, Samantha Vickers.
Okay. You look familiar. So do you see, if you were a counselor, would you envision PE not being placed on 8th grade schedule and looking at it more when they get to make sure that they've taken some type of PE by the time they're like a junior or something?
I can't answer that. I'm not a counselor, so I don't know how that works.
What are we thinking? Because a lot of times PE is like one of the first things that is placed on the schedule for freshmen.
It's not automatically put there, though. The kids pick what they want. A lot of them take health first and PE second, or, mix it up a little bit,
There
depending
is
on when they
no,
can fit it in.
I think in Berkeley County at one point, you had to take it as a freshman, but we don't have that rule. They can take it when they're senior if they want to.
I was thinking it would be good to let them know that they have these options, when they're setting their schedules, because this is new, and you say, okay, well, I wouldn't want to take it and then say, dang, I hated PE. I didn't know that I could have.
They're going to know pretty quickly.
Yeah,
Word is going to spread on that one.
Get out on this one pretty quick.
I think they're waiting for it to happen.
Scheduling night. Yes, sure. Ms. Roach, to come back to your swimming question, Ms. Roach and I are discussing, of course, there's rumors about building a pool pretty close. If we have to teach fewer PE classes, we've discussed taking a bus and going and having 9 weeks of swimming and teaching kids how to swim if the pool becomes a reality here. It's not feasible where the pool is now. We talked about that, and we'll give a lot more options, and we'll open up a lot more time.
Did you see Miss White's face when she said take a bus?
Well, we've got a great relationship with these future bus drivers.
I love the positiveness.
say that, I'm sure.
I love the positive.
During the school day. During the school day.
Yes, I love it.
During the
Find the bus driver who wants to learn how to
during the school day.
I like it.
Natatorium.
I like it. All right.
All right.
No, but I do think, to Ms. Roper's point, I hear what you're saying. I think that's a good idea to make sure that we try to get ahead of it once something is passed and it's solidified, to make sure it gets to the scheduling nights and things, because many parents are very involved with their children's schedules, but there are an overabundance that are not, and they're completely dependent on a guidance department that has time to guide them, which we also know they do not most of the time. It's a lot of students to try to fill on a lot of schedules, and it's sometimes you pick what you know they need, and so to have this option.
All right. So do we have a motion to put it out on review? Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Ms. Moran. Thank you.
Not that we don't love you, not interesting.
Not that we didn't know where the money was going. I'll read the minutes.
All right. Action on recommendation for designation of fiscal year 18 unassigned funds. You
Good
cleared the
evening.
room.
My name is Beth Moran. I'm the Chief Financial Officer. And to recap, this evening, we are here to designate the unassigned funds from our fiscal year 18 unaudited financial statements. To summarize those statements, in the presentation at the second board meeting in October, we projected a fiscal year ending fund balance of $5.6 million, and after designations of $833,000, we are looking at undesignated funds of $4.8 million, or $4.808377 million. This evening, you have in front of you recommended carryover supplements. Actually, I did want to take a minute for those, just to recap, and for those who may not be as familiar with this process. We haven't been able to have these designations, but only for the past year. In fiscal year 11, we had a negative $60,000, or almost $61,000, as our carryover, or our fund balance at end. Fiscal year 12, 1.4 million negative. Fiscal year 13, 1.1 negative. Fiscal year 14, 149,000 in the negative. Fiscal year 15, 1.1, almost 1.2 million in the negative. Fiscal year 16, a positive 291,000. And I don't believe we requested many supplement carryovers that year. Fiscal year 17, which was last year, after OPEB, we had a carryover of 4.2 million, which I think we did have some request, the majority, or 2.1 million, being transferred into designated funds. This evening, we are asking to not only supplement some programs that we currently run, but also fund them at a level that if we had a decline in revenue, that these programs would become a priority and have a balance in them in order to carry through approximately 3 years. We've listed them, and at this point, JLT felt that they were a priority to do both the funding and an annual contribution to maintain a maximum funding level. In addition to those programs, we've added a number of one-time supplement requests that you can see listed. I can individually walk through them, or we can field questions if you have questions regarding the recommendation of the designations. In total at a high level for the 4.8 million carryover unassigned. The request is for $854,000 to be designated specifically for line items, with a transfer into our board designated funds of 3.9, almost 4 million of funds. Any questions? I know that you just got the information at the last hour today.
What's co-curricular capital needs?
Co-curricular capital needs typically is band uniforms, and that is a line item where we collaborate with our high schools primarily to fund their band uniforms. They typically raise funds, or I won't specifically say raise funds because I'm not sure if they do fundraisers. They generally, at the end of a fiscal year, both schools will take $5,000 from profits and put those into a CD with different maturing dates for helping to assist the schools with the purchase of new band uniforms, which typically happens once every 10 years. Depending on how funds are. This line item will fund Washington, which is probably around 10 years since they've been around. And then it will also have a maximum contribution for that line item and an annual contribution of $10,000, so that as those schools come with their funds to collaborate with us, we will actually have a designated line item proactively.
What's hiring participation?
Hiring participation, Mr. Blanc, do you know the
faculty
code?
senate that's involved in hiring by state. You know, each school faculty senate votes if they want to be involved in the interview process when hiring teachers.
There was a code that was passed 4 or 5 years ago, and we have been trending the cost of that participation. It is trending at approximately $4,000 to $5,000, and that would be if a teacher is or an administrator is hired over the summer. There's a group of people that are put together, and they're allowed to be paid a certain amount of money in order to participate in the committee that makes that hiring recommendations. Sometimes I think it occurs during the school year, after hours, and they're paid also.
Right. And each faculty senate votes to decide if they just want to let the principal make the decision, if they want to have one faculty senate representative, or if they want to have a small group of faculty senate people involved in the hiring process, and we have to pay them their hourly rate.
Do we pay them during the school year as well?
Not if it's on work time.
Not if it's during work time. We would pay the substitute, but if it would be after work hours, do we pay them a supplement cut?
If they're working on their own time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a new code law that you're saying?
It's not new. I think what we're saying is we don't have an option to fund it, but what we're seeing, or what I've seen over the past 3 years, is approximately $5,000 expended in order for our faculty senates to participate in it. The line item would fund $15,000 this year because the carryover is sufficient to do it, and then annual contribution of $5,000, so that if we had a decline in revenue, and we're not expecting one, so I want to be very clear, we're seeing a tick up in assessed values, and there's no anticipation of that. But if we did, this board would be prepared to continue to fund that over a 3-year period without having to cut another service in order to fund it. That was the thought process for funding these initiatives in advance and at those dollar amounts.
Does that include the substitute cost in there as well, or that comes out of the substitute?
It would
line
include the
item?
substitute cost for that participation if that were happening. And during the day, and sometimes I would say that those costs are substitute cost.
It's going to cost $25,000 to reorganize the county office.
That is an estimated line item, and there is no expenditures expected or anticipated at this time. However, we thought that it would be very proactive to have a line item designated for it, and if the need had arose, that we would have the ability to access those funds for what we were being requested to do over this fiscal year.
What is the HR compensation study?
The HR compensation study was approved last year by the board for us to go out and solicit a market study for our current compensation in comparison to other West Virginia counties and I think contiguous states. Mr. Pettiford, is that correct?
That's correct. It would be all 55 counties within the state of West Virginia, and also to include neighboring counties that border us on Virginia and Maryland as part of that study.
The initial estimate was $60,000. It was expanded to include updated job descriptions as we go through this process, and the additional amount needed to fund that project in its entirety was an additional $10,000.
What's EAP program?
EAP is the Employee Assistant Program that we are currently rolling out with a focus on mental health. You can see that the United Way mental health match is focused on the school level student area. The EAP program is going to focus on the mental health of our employees, such as myself. And I think that both of those areas we are finding our discussion and needed emphasis in supporting students and staff at this time.
How many people would the virtual expansion cover?
The virtual expansion is in anticipation of looking at the decrease in enrollment and finding creative ways to lure those our students back into our county so that we can receive that additional funding. Dr. Gibson or Pat, I'm thinking we did 36, but maybe it was 36 was the budget, and I can't remember the number of students.
We only did 10 students
10.
this year, and what the difference is the offset between right now the cost of the program between the laptop and the tuition to Odyssey is covered by the increased enrollment from the state. So we did 10 students. All 10 of those students were counted on our October 1 child count, which means that we get the per pupil from the state. So we broke even on that program. What we did have to do, though, up front is we have to buy the computers and the licenses up front, and then when those students stay and they're in our enrollment on our October 1 child count, then we get the money back on the back end from our enrollment. We're not sure what kind of, once we open this to the high school, because this year we just did the pilot with just middle school, and we've heard a lot about high school and what they might bring. We're not entirely sure how many more computers and licenses we'll need to buy. We had the high school counselors and teachers come to the training session in August that we did. We're meeting with them in December for them to open it up when people are doing scheduling in January. And if we get 25 kids who want to do it, we'll know we need to buy 25 laptops. Right now, we're just not sure, so we're ballparking what that's going to cost us.
Did that also include a department chair stipend? I can't remember. I know that that also included a department chair stipend in that amount to facilitate
the one who's tutoring
that
them.
program.
Yeah.
So,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So how many students would $10,000, or would the $10,000 even go to the students? Is that just to look at programs?
It's to cover the stipend and any additional
It's to cover the
expenditures.
laptops and the tuition up front.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
For how
So the
many?
laptops are about $230 a piece, and the classes are about $400 a piece. So,
yes.
So about hopefully another 10 kids.
we hope it's at least that many, maybe more. But again, what we'll also have is the enrollment that we got on the back end. So, we had to put the money in up front, and then on October 1, we had an additional 10 kids that we wouldn't have had otherwise. And so the state money that comes into that, hopefully we'll be able to roll over as well.
That's where I was confused, because isn't the per pupil like $7,700 per pupil that we get?
I thought it was closer to
It's usually 3 years
68.
behind, but I haven't looked at it recently. That includes federal. There's like a whole formula for how they calculate that number. This wouldn't be taking the 10 and doing a per pupil. It would be funding the actual needs of the program, the stipend, and anything unforeseen in those virtual school expenditures at this time.
But to your point, we can sit down, and I do think after we have the first year of the pilot, we should be able to come back to the board and say, it's just new for us, but I think we come back to you and we say, we had 10 kids. This was how much each laptop cost us. This was how much each license cost us. And then on the October 1, this is how much the state gave us per pupil and what we anticipate. So we'll start to get a per pupil cost for virtual versus how much we're getting back. But you should anticipate getting that at the end of the year. And by then, we'll also know, presumably from January, from them enrolling kids, how many more high school kids to anticipate.
The other thing, Ms. Roper, just so you know, we have a whole program function designated for virtual schools, and we can compare it to that state level, but we can easily take the total costs that have been allocated to that program, divided by the number of students, and have our local cost for what that startup cost is costing us, and then gauge it over a trend too.
Yeah, that's really what I was looking for. How much is it costing us? So, decrease in enrollment, 286,000.
Let me explain that line item because we don't see it very often. And in my time here, we have not grown or stayed stagnant in enrollment for every 3 years, with the exception of this fiscal year. In 2012, 2015, and 2018, we either didn't grow, or we grew very little, or we grew negative, plus or minus 5 or 10 students. When we do the original budget that's adopted by the board, there is a line item. It's actually one of the only funding mechanisms for a growing county, and it's called increased enrollment. And by law, if you're a growing county and you've grown over the past 3 years, the state will project that we're going to have enrollment growth, and they are required to give us 60% based on that per pupil number by December or September, and then the other amount by December. Well, in this particular budget, fiscal year 18, typically we budget $250,000, and when we don't see growth, which we didn't in fiscal year 18, you usually see an uptick in the growth the following year. So we had a revenue line item for $286,000 anticipating growth, and as you know, we had a decrease in student enrollment of 129 students.
128.
So we need to supplement that revenue line item because we already have the expenditures that we planned on spending, because we did anticipate that revenue coming in.
And what is new positions?
The new positions should have all come to the board for approval. The majority of the new positions is a Washington Resource Officer. Is that the right terminology? We have one at Jefferson.
The Prevention Resource Officer at Washington High School.
Resource Officer. We had 3 PC aides that came, I think, last board meeting. 3 personal care aides that we'll be hiring this year. And there were a few stipends that I think were also approved. Special Education Department Chair stipend, which was new. I think a media class at Washington High School. They were all board-approved positions that were not anticipated when we did the
fiscal year 19 adopted budget from the board.
Beth, two things. Can you go over the two, safety, security, and the performance matters, and what those line items are for?
Oops, I spelled supplement wrong on that line, sorry, 2 L's. The performance matters safe schools content is actually, it's a system-wide initiative for professional development. And I know we're waiting on, or we're working through the new staff development position, but this is a line item to increase the library for, Joseph, I might have to, for having access for online training and different types of staff development.
Right.
And Joseph can give you the more of the details.
Sure. 3 broad categories of courses that have never been offered before for staff in the areas of transportation and safety, general safety across the entire county with regard to falls, spills, things like that. And then there's also a specific category for transportation, for bus operators, maintenance, and custodians, because for the longest time we've not had specific training available for them. And so now we've been talking with various committees and groups and hearing from those constituents and hearing that they're in dire need of something. And so this is an opportunity for us to build that library and build it into our system so that they have access to it.
And 2 comments on that. Performance Matters, just as a side note, is a module, and correct me if I'm wrong, Joseph, is a module of Talent Ed that allows us to track professional leave development in our system, who's taken it and who hasn't taken it. I think are we transitioning to that? Oh, that's the current way we also do our evaluation system. Okay.
Correct.
And secondly, we're supplementing the fiscal year 19 budget, but JLT did discuss that as an ongoing funding source for this, Title II, which is run by the title programs and is for professional development, would continue to fund those needs. We did not have that need when Mr. Ebersol completed his budget for fiscal year 19, so we will be supplementing it with this carryover amount. Going forward, we're hoping that he can provide that funding as long as Title I funds are continuing to come to the county. There had been talk that those federal funds would be pulled actually this year, and they were not. We actually got a slight increase, I think, if I'm correct. Security and safety, I think Dr. Gibson and Mr. Dingus can speak to it.
Can I ask a quick question before we move on really fast? The transportation safety that you mentioned, is that an online self-directed class?
Yes.
Where they could do it when they need to do it? Because I have heard that when we have professional development, if a bus driver, does a run in the morning and then they have a second job during the day and then they do the run in the afternoon, that having professional development throughout the day makes them have to take a day off of their other job, and it's evidently a financial hardship for some. So is that something that they can do?
Yes. Access 24/7,
Okay.
365 days a year.
An online library.
All right, thank you.
Back to what we were looking at a study. We made a study of some bus movements in the county and of a couple of the pickups and drop-offs, and that 30,000 will won't finish the project, but it'll start a project hopefully at C.W. Shipley, thinking about making a better loop through there and working in there. That's just a gravel number. That's not a concrete or steel, concrete or asphalt number by a long shot. But as much as we can do to make it better, Joyce, Larry, and I went out with the principal, and we all looked around trying to figure out what's going on right now is just not very safe. And we were just trying to make it safer.
All right. Speaking to the Performance Matters online curriculum, I think it would be good to long-term. A friend of mine who teaches in upstate New York, they have a day, and I know we also hear from our staff that as much as they like staff development, it's the day they need to go to the dentist, or it's if their child is home that day as well, it's their day to stay with their child, or, meet those needs because they don't want to take the time away from their students. So instead, they take the day on staff development to get all their own appointments in, which I completely understand. And one of the ways they kind of work around that, both there and I think Maryland too, Frederick County Schools does as well, they have a day where they offer this kind of staff development. You can do it online, so you could do it at whatever hours of the day you want, and you get credit for it as long as you finish it. You get your hours for it. You could do one X number of, one per day for however many days, but that is a paid day of staff development off-site. You have to be able to finish all of your modules, but you can do it at your own time, and then it allows you to get those appointments done. And I think maybe it might increase our staff development days, other days that we have that as well, and also maybe take away some substitute costs that way. But I like it. Might be some place to go in the future.
Can we talk about that later? I just have an issue with being off, being a work day, but being somewhere else, and if they get hurt or they're at the amusement park and something happens, is it our responsibility? Are they on work time? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. When they're logged into the computer, they're logged in at work time, sitting at their, at their house and logged in, or on their computer and logged in. But I guess we could check to find out how all those other states do it and cover themselves, legally. So we make sure that we do that in the right way. But and then one more question I had was, I know before when we've looked at some of these designated funds, we've also had input from maintenance or other departments, such as, hey, winter's coming and we have no plows that work, and we've done this. Is that because we're getting better at providing a budget that makes sure that we have those needs, or were those needs just not needed this year, or are we looking at all those different departments and LSIC things that could not be handled any other way?
Typically, and I'm going to give you a process and then an understanding to hope that will explain what we do. First of all, we haven't had a lot of funds to carry over, and I think in the past what you would see is the capital needs coming as a separate line item. So once we determine what that carryover is going to be, that does go to JLT for numerous discussions. They should be fielding that out to those individual departments for those needs, because when we do our budget, we typically do not budget for equipment, because unless there is a priority need that we cannot function without it, because we are trying to balance a budget that's still in a revenue gap, so it's difficult. These line items with child nutrition and special ed, there is a need there. There should be an inventory there, which we discussed for priority. The use of those funds will typically occur more on a desperate need versus proactively, we need to replace this mixer at this school because it's the oldest one that we have, and every Thursday it doesn't work, but it works, as an example. So we are not budgeting in that manner only because we don't really have the funds in order to do it. This is our first attempt, and I know that we spoke about athletics, and it's not on here, but I think we are moving and transitioning in that direction. We are not close to being there yet. I will let Ralph answer whether or not maintenance has the equipment needed to manage our snow this winter.
Well, we have equipment. You can always use more. Mm-hmm. That's the way it always is.
Or new.
You can always use new or more. Mm-hmm. And right now, we always could use a truck or always could use something else. We always have. We will get by with what we have this winter, but we always can use a new truck. We always can.
We bought
Are you
two
ready?
new snow trucks last year. Good answer, Ralph.
We can always use another one. That's where we are.
That's not going to.
I knew if you said that, you'd be
Lori,
I think the way
I would jump on that too, Ralph.
I think that the way I would summarize what Ralph is saying is we are adequately equipped to accommodate an average winter.
We are not equipped to accommodate 2 feet of snow, and we would typically hire out and probably we would either fund it out of our JLT reserve or come to the board and say, listen, we got back-to-back, over 12 inches of snow. There's no way that we're going to be equipped to do that. Ralph does have a listing of his vehicles and what their ages are. I think Dr. Gibson and him put that together 2 years ago. Are we strategizing and looking at that proactively? We're not. I think that we could do better in that area, but at this point, we're adequately funded to accommodate those type of needs. And I'll be honest with you, if they do submit it, it's the first thing that I look at when I'm trying to balance the budget and say, can you come if you really need it, or just do that as a priority. At one point, those referendum funds, there was discussion that would be how we would fund more of a capital expenditure budget, so that, like our schools, we could actually do the updates that we should be doing on an annual basis versus begging and pleading from the SBA or possibly going out for facilities bonds in order to update those type of things.
All right. To do things a little backwards, do we have a motion on the recommendation for the designation of the unassigned funds?
Actually, I'd like to, we can make a motion that we table this for just
second it.
one meeting, just to, as long as we can legally do that we don't have to, just to digest all that you've said, look through these, and just make sure that we all feel comfortable with. I think you've done a great job of explaining them.
Thank you.
And what we need, but just so we can
completely understand. I know it was late.
Is it possible to post it the way, if it was posted, then I would feel a little better. That's why I second the motion, so that everyone gets an opportunity to see what the recommendations are.
Absolutely. There's nothing on here that is pressing. I mean, there are some things that have to be funded, but it's not necessary that they be funded this evening. They can come back either the first or second board meeting in November, Dr. Gibson?
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion to table the recommendation for designation of fiscal year 18 unassigned funds. And we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you for your patience.
Thanks, Beth.
All right, action on approval of a half-time secretary 3 accounting 2 with Medicaid experience.
This is a motion that has been in place or coming for about the last 3 years, as Medicaid has added 3 extra things each year. 2 actually filing Medicaid. The first one was actually you had to do a service care plan. The next year they required parental consent and you must sign. And the last one was a physician authorization. And unless we have a signed physician authorization, we could have everything submitted by speech, OT, or PT. We cannot submit for refund. So working through this, we have found that what our gaps are is contacting the parents, contacting staff, and doing that. The person who had this position was 235, where we had talked as a team for many years, and I had brought it a couple different times to JLT and had this discussion as we were working through it, watching and monitoring how we were going over the years. And working through this to say, I need the person during the year, not extended, if that makes sense. If you give somebody an extra 35 days over the summer, there's no one they can contact. The OT, PT, speech psychologists are not in. The kids are not in. I can't get signatures. We can't get parents are away. We can't get the OTs, whether or not they put the right code. So we found that the time is more needed. I need somebody there during the year and during that time for when school is in session in order for us to do that. So we watched and what you have in front of you is actually from Terry Stewart. She is someone that has been doing Medicaid for, I believe, at least 20 years and is at EPIC, which was RISA, and she had put together what we were doing. We had several communications with her. She comes to us once or twice a month to help out and do the filing for us. And what she has seen with us is that she's seen that our fees for services have dropped in JCS over the past few years. We're making do, but we're not making as much as we could. With the requirements added, it's just not feasible that we're able to meet that demand. On the very back, what I've given you is the printout from last year's December 1. I won't have this year's until we do the December 1 count. The state doesn't give it to me. And what gives you in that column is that 776 students were eligible, and we were able to get 355. So the discussions that we have had is that we were looking at increasing that. We are well aware that special ed, 504s, students with special needs are a very needy area. We know that my numbers did not drop. After graduation, we maintained and increased 18 students right now from my October 1 count. Okay.
Decrease. Wow.
You may have to. So, and in doing that, we still sit back. The team that has formed in my department, we all sit back and look at most cost-efficient way that we can be together and the things we can do to move forward. We've done that over the last 3 years, and we continue to do it. And from that, we've come up with that we needed. It was the best scenario. Working with the woman that would actually go from 235 to 200, it was actually her idea. She came up with that because she doesn't have the access to do what she needs to do on that area and keep up with the other demands of her job. The other part from that is that we had looked at what could we cut or what we could do because we understand that there is a need and we understand that there was a decrease in population. So we looked at the positions that maybe were not filled. We had a position that has not been filled for a year and a half. We've had nobody qualified to take it. A lead SLP is a very needy thing. We don't give a stipend. I know we talked about that 2.5 years ago, which led to many series that you have taken to really look into it, which I do appreciate. If at any time, so that was our solution for hopefully making and bringing in more money. I have also uploaded, I believe, our last August deposit. And if that's not the most we can do, I would be very excited to know that we could earn more for the county. Because I know we do ask for a lot as well. Any questions?
My only concern is I think this is tied to a couple of the
It is.
positions that we pulled to
It is,
the
ma'am.
personnel to talk about in executive session. So I would suggest that we move this to later this evening after the executive session.
Yes, ma'am.
As it kind of pieces together. Does that make sense? All right. All in favor of moving it to later this evening?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you,
Thank you
ma'am.
very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. Executive session.
Yes, ma'am, we have both a legal update and personnel in executive session.
So do we have a motion to go into executive session? Second. All in favor? Aye. All right, executive session, if we could take just a 3-minute break.